I have wanted a wavefolder ever since I first found out that wavefolders exist. Wavefolders are a really cool little circuit, a little component that takes a waveform, takes the peaks of it, and folds it back in on itself instead of clipping it when it exceeds a certain level. It sounds very complex, but really what it does is adds a whole bunch of texture, a whole bunch of timbre, a whole bunch of motion to your basic stock standard waveforms. It really is a great way of adding a whole bunch of life and movement to your compositions. Now, I finally got around to getting one. I picked up the Farbfolder, which I purchased from Thonk in the UK, and I chose it for a couple of reasons. One of which was, of course, it was relatively inexpensive. The other is it looked like it did just about everything that I would want a wavefolder to do. And the final reason was because it was a DIY kit, and that's kind of what I'm about these days. But I will say that DIY might be stretching things just a little bit. Assembly might be a better term for this. Really, all you've got to do is put in a couple of jacks, a couple of pots, slap on a faceplate, and you're done. It took me, I'm not kidding, it took me about 20 minutes to start from over there at my build desk to over there plugging it in and testing it. It was really the fastest build I've ever done. But with that all said, why don't we stop rambling here? Let's go over and take a look at it.
Okay, then let's see if we can figure out exactly what this thing actually does. On the front there, we've got two controls, and on the top you can see one is labeled color, and this one here is labeled fold. And when you turn them up, you're going to get a little bit of visual feedback on either side with a little bit of mixing in the middle, which is kind of cool. I really like the way that's done. On the bottom here, we've got, of course, our input and our output for your audio signals. And then you've got two inputs for CV. One is labeled fold, and that's going to control this amount. And when you plug a CV in there, this switches from being a mount to being an attenuator. So whatever you put in, you can sort of crank it down or crank it up a little bit as you need. The other one controls the bias, and there is no physical control for that. So if you want to use that to adjust anything, of course, you need an external signal. Right now, you can see that I've got a sine wave coming in. You can see the trace there on the oscilloscope. And if I plug in the audio into this, and then I take an output directly from there, we can see that with everything turned down, we're not quite getting 100% of the pure signal. It is, even at its lowest settings, it is adulterating the signal to some degree. Now, I'm not that worried about it because this is actually designed to mess up and change your signal. Just kind of wanted to point that out. If I change the signal to a triangle, you can see it's curved there. And if I change it to a sawtooth, you see it still just kind of messes it. And then the sawtooth is actually really interesting because you can see it's actually coming out inverted. It's switching it around, which is part and parcel for how it works. Again, we will go back to the sine wave, which is a good place to start. Now, the way that wavefolders work is they take the top part and the lower part of that sound and fold it back in on itself. That's not exactly what it does, but it's close enough for our purposes here. And the way this device works is, I kind of like to think of it as being two wavefolders, one stacked on top of the other. The bottom one, the secondary one, you have some CV and some control over. The top one, you only have this knob. So it's kind of a set and forget. You're going to use this to create your bass sound. Quickly, I'm going to turn up the original sound just so you can hear it. That right there is just, actually, you know what? That's a bit low. Let's turn that up. And make it so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. That's the bass sound that we're going to start with. If I pull that down, you can see it's a little bit more muted when it's coming through the folder with nothing happening. But if I turn up the color, you can see it's starting to fold it there. And all the way up, we have some really interesting tones and textures happening. It's a little bit vowely, a little bit didgeridoo type sound. I'm going to turn it down all the way again, and the fold on the bottom does a very similar but slightly different thing. Again, very similar, but it's just slightly different in tone. It also kind of feels like it goes up a little bit higher. Now, where these really get interesting is when you use them in conjunction. So if I turn this up, say, there, and use that as my bass tone. So that's what we're going to start with. And then on top of that, we can fold more. Now, if you just want to add some aggression to your tone, you could set this and leave it as it is. Just find the spot that you like and just work with that. It's a little bit brighter, a little bit harsher, a lot more aggressive. But where it really gets interesting is when you plug in something to the fold and sort of control it with an LFO or an envelope or something like that. Just quickly, I'm going to grab just a random sine wave here. I'll plug it in. Let me get faster. There we go. We got some interesting tone and texture. Now, this is just a drone. You could also tie this to the envelope of your sound to create sort of motion and evolution in your sound over time. It's really an interesting effect. If I pull that out again, I just want to show you one more time. Turn these all the way down. The way the bias works, I'm just going to plug the same LFO into the bias, and you can see what's happening there. It is shifting it with no folding whatsoever. It's just shifting the through line, the center through line, up a little bit. If I plug it into, I've got an offset here. I can show you, I can shift it up, and I can shift it down in the other direction if I go into negative voltages. And if you shift it all the way, of course, you go to complete silence in either direction. So if I go back to my sine wave, and then I add the color, and then add a little bit of folding, and then I take another sine wave, running at a different speed, much slower speed, we've got a whole bunch of modulation, a whole bunch of total and texture. Remember, this is just one single solitary note. It's not changing at all. You could almost build a whole bass line just off this. In fact, I have in the past. But let's pull that out for now. Just leave it where it is. If I take a second oscillator, so we're running at audio rate, and I run that into the fold, we end up in sort of FM territory. And remember that when something's plugged into the fold, this is just an attenuator. This is no longer the amount, so you can increase it. You're increasing the amount that this has an effect, and you can decrease it right down to there. Just a little bit. Just to add a little bit. And this is, again, like I said, because it's an audio rate, I could actually control the VCO that's doing it, so turn it up, turn it down, and I could sequence the VCO that's running this externally if I wanted to. Pull that out again, plug it into the bias, we get something similar going on. A lot more aggressive and audio rates. Very interesting things happening with the sound there. And again, to control this, and sequence the other VCO to sort of play the amount of, I guess we want to call it distortion, folding, texture. That's the word, texture. Okay, so I've set up a really simple little patch on an 8-step sequencer. It's running over here to a basic oscillator, very simple, just running out a basic sine wave, running through a VCA, which is being modulated by the envelope over here, running through a filter, which isn't doing anything at the moment, but we will come back to that in a second. And then from there, forget about all the patching and stuff, is jumping into the folder and then back to the output mixer. The thing sounds like this when there's no folding. This is just really straightforward and simple. But if I bring that down, you can see here how much the folding is adding to it. And the folder itself is being controlled by the same envelope. So if I pull that out, slow that down a bit. Let's patch that filter in. There you go. Needs reverb, doesn't it? Let's do that. Okay, this time I've got something a little different patched in. I've got basically a straight drone. Again, we're just using a simple, straightforward sine wave. It's running through a VCA, which isn't doing anything, but it's also running through a filter, which is pulled down just a little bit, and then it's running through the wavefolder. The thing is, I've got the bias of the wavefolder being controlled by PAMs, slightly off camera, you can't see that. And that's creating a rhythmic pattern. It's cutting it in and out in a Euclidean pattern. I've also got a sine waves, LFO coming from that, controlling the folding level. So that's kind of sounding like this. Giving us an interesting pattern, a rhythmic texture. And as I said before, it's just a single straight note going all the way through. If I play around with the cutoff on the filter, increase the resonance, bring the resonance down, bring the filter all the way down. And like before, let's give this some effects. And just so we can compare it, this is what it sounds like without the effects and without any folding. That's it. Just a straight sine wave. Not bad.
So as you can see, wavefolding is a lot of fun. It really does add a whole bunch of complexity to your sound. As you can see, with careful manipulation, it really adds a lot of motion. Not that I would say anything that I've shown you today was careful or subtle in any way, but yeah, it just adds so much more to very, very simple sounds. It really is a vital tool in your arsenal if you're looking to build up a rack and you don't want to spend an arm and a leg on complex oscillators and all that stuff. You can really just extend the mileage of your really, really simple or your basic waveform oscillators. I am so happy that I finally got around to picking one up and that I'm using it. In fact, I was so happy and so impressed and pleased with this device that after I built it and tested it within a day, I immediately went back online and ordered another unit. Also from Making Sound Devices, also in the same line, I bought the Farb Shaper, which will probably be my next video. It's a very similar but different take on the same kind of concept, and the two of them work together really, really well. I actually think that down the line, I will probably need to have, and I say need, I need to have like 3 or 4 more because there's so much that you can do with a wave shaper and or a wave folder, and I want to throw them on everything now. That's just a lot of fun. So with that said, I'm just going to kind of leave you with this and say, yeah, thanks for watching. Bye now.